such a loser, Emma. Can you please not mention where you work when my in-laws arrive? My sister's voice sliced through the candlelight like broken glass. I looked up from the mashed potatoes I'd just set down on Mom's table. She said it so casually, like I was the help, not the sister who worked 2 jobs to pay her college tuition. Her fiancé's parents, stiff, country club smiles, pretended to sip their wine. My mother gave that tight, warning look that meant don't make a scene. My father cleared his throat, pretending he hadn't heard. But my chest felt like it had cracked open. My name is Emma Lane, I'm 32. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. I smiled politely, the kind of smile you wear when you've run out of safe words. Don't worry, Claire, I said quietly. I won't embarrass you. She rolled her eyes and turned to her fiancé's mother. Emma works at a diner, she announced like she was sharing a charity case. Laughter rippled at the table, thin and brittle. I felt heat crawl up my neck, but my voice stayed calm. Actually, 2 diners, I corrected softly. Double shifts help when you're covering someone's tuition payments. The table fell silent. Claire's fiancé, Mark, blinked. Wait, you paid for... Let's not dwell on the past, Mom interrupted sharply, forcing a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. But the truth was already out, humming like electricity under the tablecloth. Dinner continued in awkward fragments, silverware clinking, conversations forced. I kept my eyes on my plate, counting every second until I could leave. After dessert, Claire followed me to the hallway. Why do you always have to ruin things? She hissed. Ruin what? Your curated image? I said, slipping on my coat. Don't worry. I won't be around to mess it up. Her mouth opened, but I was already walking toward the door. Outside, cold air slapped my face, and I finally exhaled. I'd spent years feeding her dreams while starving mine. But something shifted tonight. Quiet, steady, irreversible. And by the time the first rent day rolled around, she'd understand what it means when the person you call a loser stops paying your bills. The next morning, sunlight hit my kitchen window like an accusation. My phone buzzed with work notifications, but I stared at the list of automatic payments, utilities, student loan, and one that stood out like a bruise. Claire's rent. $1,450. Due on the 1st. I hovered over the cancel autopay button for a long minute before tapping it. A clean click. It was like deleting an old version of myself. The sound of the coffee machine grounded me back into my small apartment. Every surface smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and effort. I'd built this life inch by inch. Waitress mornings, night shifts at the copy shop, online design classes in between. Not glamorous, but mine. Claire had never asked where the money came from. She just accepted it. The rent transfers, the tuition payments, the loans that never got repaid. Her version of me existed somewhere between background noise and bank account. I went to my afternoon shift, tying my apron around my waist. The diner hum was its own kind of therapy. Plates clinking, coffee pouring, music from the 80s humming from the back. Marcy, my manager, raised a brow. You okay? You look like someone finally saw the truth. Something like that, I said. Good. About time you stopped carrying dead weight. That night, my phone lit up. Claire. Hey, forgot to remind you about the rent transfer. Can you send it before midnight? I typed slowly. Not sending. Not my responsibility anymore. 3 disappeared, then came back. What does that mean? You know I have the twins and bills. Then maybe stop calling me a loser at family dinners, I wrote, hitting send before I could soften it. 10 minutes of silence. Then, you can't just stop. Mom will lose it. I set my phone face down on the counter. For years, I'd been her invisible backbone. The steady one, the fixer. But something about being humiliated in front of strangers flipped a switch inside me. That night, I didn't dream about work or bills. I dreamed of silence, of a peace so complete it felt like freedom wearing my skin. By Sunday morning, the family group chat was on fire. Mom. Emma. What's this about you refusing to help your sister? Dad. Can we all be adults about this? Claire. You're punishing the kids, not me. Grow up. I sipped my coffee slowly, scrolling through the messages. Not one said, "Are you okay?" Not one asked what happened at dinner. For years, they'd expected me to absorb every insult, every expense, and call it love. But not this time. At noon, Mom called. "Sweetheart, can we talk about what's going on?" Claire's worried sick. "She called me a loser in front of her in-laws, Mom." A long pause. "She didn't mean it. You know how stressed she's been. I worked 2 jobs to get her through college. She meant it." Mom sighed, her voice turning careful. "Families support each other. That's what makes us strong." I laughed quietly. "Funny. That only seems to apply when I'm the one giving." "Don't be dramatic, Emma." "I'm not. I'm just done." Click. The call ended before I could hear her inhale. Later, I visited the small park near the diner. Wind brushed through the trees, and the quiet gave me courage. I opened a note on my phone and began writing, not a message, but a record. Every payment I'd made, every tuition check, every month of rent. By the time I finished, the list scrolled for nearly a minute. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about acknowledgement. That evening, I texted the family group, "Dinner next Sunday. My place. Everyone's invited." Claire replied instantly, "So you're finally coming around?" "Sure," I typed. "Bring receipts. We'll talk about support." Ethan, my quiet friend from the diner who'd seen me drag myself through night shifts, peeked over my phone screen as I hit send. "Big move," he said. "Yeah," I replied, feeling the tremor in my hands. But someone's got to rewrite the story. And this time, it wasn't going to end with me cleaning up the mess. The following Sunday, my small apartment smelled like coffee and confrontation. I'd cleaned the counters twice, rearranged the chairs, then forced myself to stop fussing. They were coming not for me but for answers. At 6 sharp, the doorbell rang. Claire arrived first, perfectly dressed for sympathy. "I brought dessert," she said sweetly, holding up a bakery box like peace offering. "Keep it sealed," I said, stepping aside. "We're not celebrating." Behind her came Mom and Dad, already tense. Mom clutched her purse like a life vest. Dad looked at everything except me. They sat stiffly around my table, the same table where Ethan and I had eaten takeout 100 quiet nights. I placed a folder in front of them. "That's a summary of what I've paid for over the last 10 years. I began. Tuition, rent, utilities, everything Claire couldn't manage on her own." Mom frowned. "Emma, that's unnecessary." "It's overdue," I interrupted, my voice steady. "You called it family support. I called it sacrifice." Claire crossed her arms. "I never asked for your help." I let out a small laugh. "Right. Because I offered it before you had to ask. That's what family does, remember?" Dad leaned forward. "Emma, you're overreacting." I looked straight at him. When she called me a loser in front of her fiancé's family, was that overreacting too? Silence. Claire's eyes darted to Mom. "You're twisting it." I was nervous. "Then maybe next time, insult someone who didn't put you through college," I said. The tension thickened until it hummed in the air. I slid another paper across the table, a printed notice from her landlord. "Your rent's overdue." I let him know the payments won't continue. "You'll need to handle it." Her face drained of color. "You wouldn't." "I already did." Mom gasped. "Emma, she has kids, and maybe she'll finally learn what responsibility feels like." No one spoke after that. The only sound was the clock ticking toward the first of the month. When they finally left, the air felt still, like the pause between thunder and rain. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty for doing the right thing. The silence after they left clung to my apartment like fog. I didn't turn on music, didn't text anyone. I just sat there, staring at the folder of receipts, feeling both lighter and hollow. I had finally spoken the truth aloud, and it had landed like a wrecking ball. Monday morning, I walked into the diner early. The neon open sign buzzed softly, casting pink light across the counter. Marcy was wiping menus. "You look like someone who finally dropped a 10-year secret," she said. "More like a 10-year burden," I answered, slipping on my apron. "Well," she smiled, "don't pick it back up." By mid-morning, I noticed the stares. My phone buzzed with alerts, group texts, Missed calls, a social media post from my sister. She'd written, "Some people would rather humiliate family than help them. Can't believe blood can be this cold." Hundreds of sympathy emojis trailed beneath it. For a second, I felt that familiar urge to explain, to defend. But then I remembered the silence at my wedding, the whispers at dinner, the bills with my name on them.
Not this time.
That evening, Ethan dropped by with takeout. "You've seen it?" he asked, setting down the bag. "Yeah," I said, scrolling through the comments. "She's turning me into the villain." "You don't owe anyone a counterstory," he replied. "The truth will breathe on its own." His calm steadied me like a hand on the shoulder. 2 days later, my manager handed me a stack of mail that had been dropped off. Inside one envelope was a printed letter from my parents. "We're disappointed in how you handled things, but we still love you." I traced the words with my finger, realizing it wasn't an apology, just a performance of one. I folded the letter and placed it in the trash. There's a strange quiet that follows when you stop begging to be understood. That night, I fell asleep to the sound of rain tapping against my window, steady, cleansing, final. By the weekend, the family's silence felt strategic. No calls. No messages. Just the kind of quiet that dares you to break it first. But I'd learned something new. Silence isn't punishment when it's chosen. It's peace. Sunday afternoon, while I was refilling coffee at the diner, a familiar voice broke through the noise. "Emma?" I turned, nearly dropping the pot. Claire stood there, makeup perfect but eyes red-rimmed. "Can we talk?" she asked. I nodded toward a corner booth. 10 minutes. That's all I've got. She slid in across from me, her hands trembling around a napkin. "I shouldn't have said what I did at dinner," she began. I waited. She exhaled shakily. I wanted them to like me. Mark's parents. They're judgmental, and I panicked." "You didn't panic," I said quietly. "You aimed your shame at me." "That's not the same thing." She flinched, but didn't deny it. "I lost the apartment," she whispered. "Mom's furious. Dad won't even talk to me. I'm staying at a friend's house for now." I studied her for a long moment. The proud sister, who'd once looked down on me, now sat small and scared. "You'll figure it out," I said. "Please, Emma. I can't do this alone." "You never had to," I said softly. "You just chose to forget who was helping you." She bit her lip. "You're really not going to help me, are you?" "I already did," I replied. "For 10 years. A single tear rolled down her cheek before she stood. "You've changed." "No," I said, returning to the counter. I finally stopped pretending. After she left, Marcy nodded toward me from the register. "You okay?" I looked out the window, at the fading light over Main Street. "Yeah," I said. "For the first time, I think I actually am." When I clocked out that night, my phone was quiet. No guilt, no begging, no apologies. Just silence. And this time it felt earned. The next morning, sunlight spilled across my kitchen table, glinting off the stack of mail I hadn't touched all week. A notice from my landlord, a few bills, and one cream-colored envelope addressed in my mother's handwriting. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I poured coffee and sat staring at the steam curling upward, remembering all the mornings I'd rushed out early so Claire could sleep in. Years of quiet sacrifices disguised as love. When I finally opened the letter, her words were carefully rehearsed. "Families shouldn't fight over money. We've all made mistakes. You should have been kinder to your sister." No mention of what she'd said at dinner. No apology. Just guilt disguised as grace. I folded the paper, slid it into the drawer, and wrote a reply I never planned to send. "Dear Mom, I'm not angry. I'm awake. There's a difference." At the diner that afternoon, Ethan walked in with 2 coffees. "You've been quiet," he said, sliding into the booth. "I'm processing," I admitted. "It's strange, letting go of something that's defined you for so long." He studied me for a moment. "You're allowed to build a life that doesn't include people who keep tearing you down. Even if they're family? Especially if they're family." His words settled somewhere deep. I thought about the scholarship program the diner owner had mentioned months ago, a local grant for single women in night school. I'd ignored it back then, too busy keeping everyone else afloat. But now, the idea flickered like a new sunrise. That evening, I sat at my desk and filled out the application. For the first time, I was investing in myself. My own name in the recipient box felt strange and thrilling. Before bed, I checked my phone one last time. No messages. No noise. Just peace. And for the first time, I didn't mistake silence for loneliness. It sounded a lot like freedom. A month passed quietly. The first of the month came and went, no payment, no pleading text. Just a subtle shift in air, like everyone had realized the old dynamic was dead. At the diner, things changed too. Customers I'd served for years started greeting me by name instead of sweetheart. Marcy promoted me to assistant manager. "You've got leadership written all over you," she said, handing me new keys. For the first time, I believed her. That same week, Ethan helped me set up a small workspace in my living room. "If you're serious about the design classes, you need a proper setup," he said, assembling a secondhand monitor. "I don't even know where to start," I confessed. "Start where you always have," he said, "by showing up." I laughed, not out of disbelief, but recognition. For years, I'd shown up for everyone else. Now, I was finally showing up for me. By Friday, a voicemail from Claire appeared. Her voice cracked midway through. "I got a part-time job. I'm sorry for everything I said. You were right. I didn't understand." I replayed it twice, unsure how to feel. The apology I'd wanted for a decade came softly, too late. But I didn't delete it. I just saved it under closure. Later that night, I hosted a small dinner, Marcy, Ethan, and a few coworkers. Laughter filled the apartment where arguments once echoed. We toasted with cheap wine and loud music, and for once, I didn't feel like an outsider in my own life. When the clock struck midnight, I looked out at the quiet street. Somewhere, Claire was probably counting down the hours until her next rent payment. I didn't feel satisfaction or spite, just understanding. Sometimes, peace doesn't roar. It whispers. Ethan clinked his glass against mine. "To what?" he asked. "To new cycles," I said. "And to finally ending the old ones." And in that single moment, surrounded by laughter that didn't need permission, I realized. The silence I once feared had become the sound of my freedom.